Hell's behind the scenes interviews with my two illustrious guests, Will English and Captain Jack. How are you gentlemen doing this morning?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a little bit early in the morning for me, but I'm happy to be here. Like this is kind of like, kind of surreal being interviewed for once as opposed to doing the interviewing. How about yourself, Jack?
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat you are, Will. We've been doing some late nights as of late with the recent tournament we've been working on. So this is essentially our wake up call. So glad we could be here.
Yeah,
Well,
for
we are
sure.
going to get in. We are going to get into the tournament that you guys were a part of. But you said that it was kind of early where you are, Will. Like I don't know about you, but for me, it's like 10 a.m. So I had to kind of start my day a little earlier than usual. So, like, before we get into the hard hitting journalistic questions? What is your wake up routine? Like, what is the first five things you do when you get out of bed?
Hit the snooze button, roll over, hit the
Mhm.
snooze button again. No, no, I get up, I do my, my business in the bathroom.
Mhm.
I make coffee.
Mhm.
I check my messages for everything before I start my day. It's like I'm one of those people that like I try to like check my email first time in the morning and never look at it again until towards the afternoon, and then I check my calendar to make sure, okay, cool, where am I supposed to be? Because I didn't know, I knew that I was being interviewed today, but I didn't know it was at noon my time. So I was like, oh yeah, so I got to put that in my calendar. I got to rearrange some stuff, make sure that everybody's all cool, and then get prepped for this. So it's usually, like usually my day starts about 9 o'clock, 9:30. Do some stretches, do some workouts, and then 10 o'clock is like, okay, hitting the work. Let's go. Let's 10 to 6. Let's get this thing done.
Yeah, Jack. What about you? What's your morning routine?
Uh, my morning routine isn't nearly as detailed as Will is. I roll out of bed at 7:30 so that I can take my oldest to school at 7:40. I get back home in what disheveled clothes I threw on myself to get out the door, help my wife get the youngest ready so that she can take them to school. Depending on the day, I start off with coffee and therapy for most of my mornings. And then after that, once I've got that out of the way, it's, business as usual. We just recently bought a house, so a lot of my days have been filled with unpacking. Now that I finally have time to do it when I'm not traveling across the country to do stuff. But, and then, working on stuff for the invitational. So.
Well, first of all, congrats on that because I know that that's buying a house is a big deal. So I'm happy to hear that. Congratulations on the new house
Heck
and
yeah.
kind of getting things unpacked.
It's
So
the millennial dream.
right, I would like to own a house so I can now have to do all of the yard work and plumbing and maintenance. And man, maybe I didn't think this through as well as I thought I should
You
have.
you right. You right. It was the scariest thing that ever happened to me. If you follow me on Twitter, you already know. Within the first month of us owning the home, I had just set up my office and we had a massive flood here. But because of the desk that I bought and like where everything was sat,
Mhm.
like it was like here's my desk and here's where the water flooded the basement. Like like, oh man. And then my idiot butt jumped in the water without thinking about turning the electricity off. So it's like we had a lot of Hail Marys that day.
Now,
But that was like my introduction into congrats, you own a home. Now deal with this shit.
now, Jack, I have to tell you, um, don't jump into water where there's electronics
You
because that
right.
is the fastest way to fricassee your everything
You
all at
right.
once.
You right.
So, all right,
Fricassee.
I'll know for next time. I'll know for next time.
just have that moment of wait.
Exactly. Well, it was more so that moment of, oh my goodness, my entire career is getting ready to go down the tubes because I don't have the money to replace this shit.
I
So,
under so on that subject, right? So we have a air conditioning unit that's basically right where I'm pointing right here, and my
mm,
PC is right where I'm pointing here. So as you can see, they're pretty lined up. Was sitting here in the summertime, and my AC started to make kind of a weird noise, and I turned it off. It was the middle of the summer too. Turned it off because if it starts dripping and it hits that PC, like my entire job just gone.
yeah.
Um, and it's one of those things you don't really consider when you when you are a caster or a host and you work from home is you never realize how much you have to kind of rely on your tech. Because when I
Mhm.
worked in a regular job, like I didn't have to worry about all of that. Well, actually, I
Yeah,
was
it's
in the
all
IT
provided for you.
department. Right. Well, I was in the IT department, so I did have to worry about fixing my own computer. But for the most part, when you're in a regular job, like
Mhm.
they provide the PCs for you. So
Mhm.
on that subject, I want to ask both of you, what did you do before you started working in esports? Like what was the jobs that you had before this?
Jack, I need you to go first because, like, for me, that's a huge that's a huge question for me. So, what did you
Gotcha.
do?
Well, I actually was going to school for education. I got my undergrad in human development and family studies at the University of Connecticut. Most of that while being a single parent at the time. And then by the time the pandemic hit, I was doing my master's in teaching with a focus on family and consumer sciences. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, my mental health, my family, I had to step away, but it was during that time like was already doing casting as a hobby, and then I just, I woke up one day at the beginning of 2021 and I was like, "You know what? Let's just see. Let's just see what we can do. Let's push out and see if we can take this a little further than a hobby." And boy, howdy. If I knew then what I know now, I would have done it probably way sooner in the pandemic. That's all I got to say about that.
For myself, so like most millennials slash Gen Xers or whatever, it's like my career has changed so many different times I don't even remember
Mhm.
anymore. My degree is actually in electrical engineering. I used to work in construction. I was an architect. I switched over to web development, like cold turkey. And as I was leaving that whole practice, people were like, "Oh my god, why would you leave all this money on the table?" I'm like, "I don't know, but I gotta do something else. I don't want to work 18 hours a day and not have vacations and work hard, play hard mentality, or whatever." So started web development, and so now, like it's kind of what before casting is like. I still do web development. That's my primary day job. And the other part was like I did events on the side. I was part of I worked in events, hospitality, conventions, parties. So I was a DJ, I was a radio guy. I worked, I worked for anime conventions and comic book conventions and stuff like that, doing events management and for a number of years. And then I quit that cold turkey before this, and so now I got sucked back into esports. And now I'm like, all right, well now, whereas I stopped traveling for like 5 or 6 years, I stopped traveling. I was like, I want my weekends back. I want X, Y, and Z. Now I'm doing that all over again. So now my summers are
Yeah.
basically like every other week I'm on a plane going somewhere, and so we're back. So
I it was one of those things, like especially when the pandemic started and a lot of like we watched a lot of big corporations kind of struggle to adjust to that. I feel like
Mhm.
casting in esports was something that like they were at the forefront of making a lot of those changes. And
Mhm.
one of the really cool things about that I've noticed, especially within certain types of games, was the emphasis on making sure that network play was good, so that they could actually do tournaments online. Because I remember
Mhm.
at the beginning of it, like my wife and I were kind of into watching League of Legends tournaments. It was just one of those things we enjoyed watching. We enjoyed the trash talk, the stories, and she was just getting into games. So watching that and her being half Korean, she very much connected to the fact that her countrymen would just regularly stomp people, which made it a lot of fun when we're sitting next to each other. When I was like talking trash, like, "All right, Faker's gonna drop right here." She was like, "No, he's not." And even though she did not know what any of that stuff was, bro never dropped. But esports did a lot of those types of changes,
Mhm.
and it was I just thought it was a really cool how a lot of those things kind of shifted and adjusted. Now, both of you kind of in talking about these things about like what you did before esports, I learned something about each of you I did not know. I did not know that Will was an electrical engineer, so if I ever need something rewired, I know who to talk to. And I did not know that Captain Jack was working on his masters, which means he was one selling of his soul away from being Dr. Captain Jack, which would have been dope.
You right.
But tell me an interesting fact about each of you that people probably don't know. And I want something that's a deep cut. I don't want one of those
Mm.
surface level, like, oh, my favorite color is chartreuse. Like, give me something good. Give me the good stuff.
well, I'll go first, and
Okay.
like it still amazes me to this date. I haven't really talked about this, somewhat publicly, but actually, one of my things is that I'm actually a semi-famous cosplayer. I stopped cosplaying a long time ago, and I'm not going to reveal, my moniker. But like, it's kind of funny that like I was semi-famous and I was notorious for a whole bunch of stuff. And then now I'm doing this, and like no one's recognized it, no one's made the connection, and if they have, it's like kind of like this weird like little like I know who you are. I'm like that's totally cool, and so I get to just kind of enjoy like people accuse me of like wanting to be famous, and I'm like I don't want to be famous. I just want to do my job, and and if I happen to be on camera or whatever, that was kind of like the thing I tried to avoid for a long time in this process. I was like, guys, I want to be behind the scenes. I don't need any of this. But then of course now I have a different mission. Now I need to be in front of the camera to kind of push some other stuff along, and so but yeah, no, I don't talk about because I don't want to bring in the drama, but I will say that like the other funny thing was that when we had WT Snacks, who used to be
Oh my
a mod
gosh.
a mod from 4chan, Same Drill. It's like that's a longtime friend of mine from that whole scene, and so like the anime convention scene kind of like runs deep, and now we've all kind of grown up and we're doing other things, and so we're just kind of like, yeah, okay, we will talk about our past, but like our futures are now, and so like it's insane. It's absolutely insane how deep that goes. But yeah, no, I like some people know the association, and I'll tell you pride afterwards. But like it's kind of insidious, like how like I'm somewhat semi famous again now. Now people know who I am, but now it's my real name is and not my cosplay name. So it's kind of hilarious. And then so if Jackie, if you wanna put something up.
Yeah, so I've always been a performer. I don't know if people have kind of realized that through my casting and my overuse of dad jokes. But even when I was in high school, I did performing arts, show choir, theater, stuff like that. So um, my job, everyone has like the typical like teenager job. Mine was not the typical teenager job. Uh I was a sign thrower. Well, I wouldn't say thrower, more like performer. Um in my hometown, and it didn't even start out like that. I grew up in Topeka, Kansas. I had gotten hired to at like 14 to work for CC's Pizza, and at the time, this was before like advertising on the internet was big and stuff like that. So it was either TV or they sent you outside to just hold a sign and like wave at cars and stuff. And I get bored real quick. So I just started like performing. Like I'd bring like dating me a little bit. I bring like my Walkman or my CD player out there and I would just jam. Like I would just be like dancing or whatever, and that became my job. Like I never worked inside the restaurant the rest of the time I worked there. Like I literally just became their promotional guy, and like that was all that I did, sun up to sundown, 40 hours a week if I wanted to. The schedule was my own, in the winter, summer, didn't matter. So if you can find me, it was back in 2004, 2006. So, you're going to be searching for a little bit, but it was one of my proudest moments, I would say, because it really kind of it was kind of that first opportunity I had to kind of create a name for myself. And then, when I got into casting, I was able to latch onto that opportunity again. So,
That's so. First of all, Will, I'm going to hold you to that because I definitely am going to want to know like
Yeah,
the
I'll tell you.
inside scoop on that one. And I just imagine Jack out there now just twirling those signs and just like getting his like air guitar solo with his Walkman on. Like I just for those
you're
of you who
right.
do not know,
100%.
that takes a tremendous amount of coordination. Because if you've ever tried to throw and catch a thing at the same, like just anything, you know that that
Hmm.
takes a certain amount of hand-eye coordination.
Hmm.
But those sign twirlers to me are more akin to if you've ever watched like collegiate drum lines.
Yeah.
They
Color
remind me
guard.
more of the color guard of like
Hmm.
twirling a rifle. And the only difference
Yep.
is in the case of a rifle, like it's not real, but it is wood. So if you miss your Toro, you catch
Yeah.
that pop on the head. But with the sign, like if it happens to hit you, it's not that big of a deal unless the sign was really thin, and then you get those weird like
Yeah,
lines and
yeah,
shit.
paper cuts.
But
Yeah,
that's
Yeah.
still super dope. I just at some point I need you to. I'm gonna need afterwards to see some footage. I need you to
I,
find.
I actually have a newspaper article somewhere on my computer that I could probably show you. You probably can't find it nowadays because it's again like really old, but
I got you.
oh,
All right, chat.
I got
I'm
you.
gonna look into that one, but I'm not gonna tell you about that one. I'm just gonna read that one behind the scenes. Um, you know what? Will kind of mentioned in the beginning how liberating it is to be on the other side of the interview because
Mhm.
all you have to do is just answer the questions and keep the host kind of going. So it's funny because I'm reading these questions and in my brain I'm coming up with the answers and I'm like, wait, no
no,
one's nah, we on
it's
this
hard,
side, not
isn't
that
it?
side. It is right because you
Mhm.
because you see questions, especially as a host, and you naturally want to like add your bit of a story or add your spin on it.
Mhm.
So it's a weird thing. It's how I kind of realized that this was the job for me because I'd worked in IT and I've always been personable. And so I ended up going into licensed merchandise, which is a
Mhm.
lot of just like dealing with clients. And a lot of that comes down to being personable and being a people person and being able to, actively listen. So for me, kind of segueing from those kind of very social jobs and those very like, extrovert first jobs was kind of how it became a natural fit. Plus, I was a streamer as well. So it became very easy for me to kind of segue from being a streamer to being a host. But I want to know from each of you, and this time we're gonna start with Jack this time. How did you first get into like casting? Like how like casting or producing cast? Like, and do you remember the first tournament, like the first big tournament
Mhm.
you worked on?
So, I got into casting over 3 years ago. I had just gotten into Overwatch. Was a Halo player for a long time. Then got into COD when I was in the Navy because that's literally all we had on the boat. And was that until I met my wife, and she was like, "Here's Overwatch." I'm like, "Where's the storyline?" And she's like, "There's no storyline except if you read this stuff." And I'm like, "This is lame." And then here I am 5 years later. So there was one day, I'm kind of old, so I'm on Facebook and I'm trolling around, looking at like Overwatch memes, and I'm part of various groups and whatnot, and just see this post that's like, "Hey, we're gonna be starting up a community tournament where people can like play, and we need like production folks like casters and producers and this, that, and the other thing." And this was around the time of the inaugural season Overwatch League. I was watching like Uber and Mr. X, and just seeing them get so hype about the game, and I'm like, I can talk a lot and know a decent bit about Overwatch. I could do this. So, I put my hat in the ring, and there were two of us for the longest time to get started. The org, I don't believe exists anymore, unfortunately, due to inner turmoil. But it was probably some of the. It was the greatest experience getting started. After that, I moved on to a variety of different orgs. My home org, if you could call it that right now, is Tranquility. If anyone's familiar with that, a Tier 4 tournament, just finishing up Season 7 in the next couple of weeks with
Okay.
like 72 teams from like Gold to Masters. So be sure to be checking them out. But and then that's actually where I ended up meeting Will. He had ended up getting brought in with like a group of new folks, and he saw me cast, and he was like, "I want that
like that
guy.
guy, that
I
that
want
guy.
that
I
guy."
want that one.
I
And
need that guy on my team.
did he not know what he was getting himself onto?
Yeah, great, biggest mistake I've ever made in my career. No, I'm totally, I'm totally kidding. No, no, there was a reason, and my reasoning was correct, and I'm extremely grateful for that, the kind of that chance meeting and
Mm,
stuff like that. So
yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much how I got my start. How about you, Will?
So how do I say this? Like I kind of got into casting by accident, and also like to add kind of like to the kind of the secret secret thing I have. Like a lot of people don't know that I'm actually pretty introverted. Like at the end of the day, like my default is quiet, is stay away from me. Like I don't like people, and I don't say that in a negative tone. It's just like I recharge by being whatever. So like I joke with my friends that I'm a classically trained extrovert, and then the situations that I get myself into are within my realm of control. So like if I'm casting, if I'm standing on a stage, it's just like no one else is on stage with me, and like like I can't see the audience, and so like I'm in a controlled environment. But if you ask me to do something like beyond that or unprepared or on the spot, I'm like like I can hear myself stutter, and I'm like I can't talk. Like so anyway, so getting into casting was kind of like this thing like. I've always wanted to do it, but just like I never saw myself as a caster. I just saw myself as kind of like this behind the scenes guy, and even down to like, like I was working in the FGC before coming in Overwatch, and just every once in a while I'd have to get in front of the microphone because the only option I had was like this is my stream, and if I don't do the commentary, who else is going to do it, right? So I'm just like, all right, cool. I sound like crap, but I'm just gonna try it and see what happens. And then right around the time of like the Overwatch League coming out and like just like I went to like the World Cup at BlizzCon, so obviously I have the jersey. I'm kind of seeing this whole entire production. I'm like, man, I would love to be a part of this, but how? How can I be a part of this whole magic and information and stuff like that, which will lead into the invitational story later. But like, um, then I got an opportunity to work on Chicago Overwatch. It was like the first Lakeside Showdown, and I didn't care. I was like, guys, I don't care. I just need to be involved in this. And then the other thing that I wanted to trade for is like, I will produce this entire thing. Just let me cast one match. And again, I know that I sucked, but I like got on, I tried it, and then it wasn't really clicking. It wasn't really like, all right, well, I tried it, it was cool, but the other caster was carrying me all the way through. And so like I'm thankful to Randy and Labosco at the time. Like I had Labosco and Rich Rad at Lakeside Showdown 2 that carried me for a while. And then over time, so then we get into the invitational, and it's like, we, I wasn't planning on casting at all. Like I was just like, all right, cool. I'm just gonna observe what X, Y, and Z. And then we had a cast to drop, and then it was me and Tangerine for a whole entire day. And then I'm just sitting here, I'm like, okay, this is a skill that I must, whatever. And then I start getting picked up for other stuff, and so like I had to start taking it seriously. And so now I consider myself a caster, and so it's the same process. I kind of get, I gotta get warmed up, and I gotta get used to it and understand everything else. But like I didn't see myself as that person to start off with, and then later on when I started working in, I worked at an open division, and then I almost had a chance to do contenders trials. It's the same drill. It's just like these are the same people that I worked with in the invitational. Like there's no difference between. I mean, there is, but there was no real difference between me and most of the amateur level casters that were coming through. So I'm just like, all right, well then I deserve to be here just like anybody else. And so it's a skill I have to work on, and like I said, I'm not the best, and I don't put my name in the hat to be the best person on the team, but I can hold my own, and it's getting brighter into the future and stuff. So I enjoy it now.
That's really kind of inspiring to hear, because I could feel like I'm now at the spot where you are now, where it's like you're first getting into this, you're doing hosting stuff, and you're like, I don't know if I'm the right person for this, or maybe someone else can do it. One thing you said that I thought was very interesting is that you said you were a classically trained introvert. I find a lot of people in hosting kind of gigs either fall into one of two categories. Either you are a extroverted introvert, where you can do the performance if necessary, but when the lights turn off, it's just you kind of withdrawing to yourself.
Yep.
Or you're unfortunately like me, where you're an extroverted extrovert, where like my energy recharges talking to people. Put
Right.
me on a live stage, little prep, no prep. I'm completely like I'm ready to go. I kind of love that organized chaos sometimes of that, like, hey, we need
Yes.
someone to fill time for 30 minutes. Do you think you can do it? And I'm like, you're gonna have the better question is, will you be able to stop me in 30 minutes? So I
Yeah,
definitely understand that.
yeah, that's not me.
Yeah.
I can't fill worth a damn. But like I got about 5 minutes of material. But if I don't have anything prepped ahead of time, like yeah, I'm not the guy. But
I completely understand that. One question we got from chat that I want to ask you before we kind of go on to the next question is,
Mhm.
have either of you ever taken any improv classes. And the reason I ask this is because I've had a couple of people who've mentioned like, oh, well, have you taken an improv class, or like you should take an improv class or things like that. And in my case, it's not so much, I've never taken improv, but I've always had witty friends, right? And when you have a large circle of witty friends, you learn real quick some of those basics of improv. Like you don't so much learn like the yes and principles, but you definitely learn how to keep a joke going, when to retract on a joke, when to emphasize something that someone says, even down to like if someone flubs a word, you can kind of adjust and go with that. And I have found amazingly that that has been tremendously beneficial when it comes to working in events, because there are times when you're working on an event and it just like something goes wrong, like technology goes wrong or camera spazzes out or something like that, and then you have to adjust on the fly. So have either of you ever taken any improv classes or considered taking them?
I'm just gonna say like I've not been formally trained in improv, but the exact situation you mentioned about like adjusting on the fly, that's been my entire life. Like every profession that I've ever been a part of has some element of okay, this is going to heck in a handbasket in 30 seconds. What are you going to do it? And I make executive decisions like that. I'm like you know what? And then I make the decision. I commit to it, and I walk away. And people look at me like I'm nuts. It's like, wait, how can you make this decision? Did you consider this other thing? I did, but my job says I have to respond to this now. And so the only thing that maybe would be formal is like in high school I took I took like speech, like I was in part of the speech team in a very geeky way. And the funny thing is like I didn't do impromptu there. I did extemporaneous, which means you have to prep before you make the speech in 5 minutes and stuff like that. And I'm like, I want to do impromptu though. I want to do that. And so now more of my style is more impromptu as opposed to like me prepping for it is disastrous. But if you give me like a couple lines, okay, cool. And I go out there and I did comedy while I was a cosplayer. So like that was my routine. So like I'm learning type 5, learning how to roll the punches and stuff like that. Take situations and make jokes out of them and stuff. So I'm sure that in improv class we refine those things, but like most of my experiences in life have kind of trained me for those kind of moments, and so I don't envy those folks. But of course, I have Second City in Chicago, so it'd be very easy for me to do that and be part of that whole culture. But yeah, and I'm gonna guess that Jack's gonna have a very similar answer to this question. So why don't you go, Jack?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I did do improv while I was in high school for a couple of years. Learned all the tricks of the trade. We would do our own versions of like whose line is it anyway for like fundraisers and stuff like that, and it was a good time. But other than that, it's just life experience. My motto for life is Semper Gumby, always flexible. Like, no matter what situation I'm walking into, if the shit is hitting the fan, like, I'm gonna be there to be like, all right, well, this ain't working out too well. Let's see what we can salvage and keep this sucker going. And,
Semper Gumby.
it's just like you were explaining earlier, like that extroverted extrovert. Like, I could go fill time as much as possible. I could talk about whatever stories I could, and, lately, the best thing that I've loved about being at home is that I get to kind of have those playful interactions with my wife Artemis all the time. So it's we're both incredibly dark and incredibly witty. So it constantly is just like back and forth between us all the time. It is just so much fun.
Two things. I'm stealing Semper Gumby because that's dope. Also, your wife's name is Artemis. That name is
Well, that's
spectacular.
her online name.
I I
Still,
assume that that's what that was, because again, we're not listen. This is a behind the scenes, not in.
you're
This isn't.
right.
This ain't
It's not
diary.
behind the scenes.
Yeah, like this ain't diary. This ain't MTV's
Yeah.
diary. This is just behind the scenes. We're only letting you a little bit
Mhm.
behind the curtain, but you're not coming home with me, Chad. I love you guys. You guys are spectacular, but I'm only giving you behind the scenes.
Mhm.
But okay, so one of the things I want to get to, and this is kind of one of the big things we want to talk about, is you mentioned the invitational, right? One of the things you guys worked on this past year, which seemed to be an extremely challenging thing, was the invitational. Can you guys explain the invitational for anyone watching who may not know what it is or what it was about?
Okay, so this is mostly going to be on me. I'm not going to speak for Captain Jack here, but he's kind of a witness to it, and I guess maybe in a certain sense like he's kind of a beneficiary of the event. But the big thing about the Invitational was, I was kind of like I was an esports producer in FGC and other games. I was working in CS:GO. In the beginning of the pandemic, like all that work dried up. That was like kind of my side income, my side hustle. I was so used to traveling every year, and it just came out dry. And so, you know. As I mentioned a couple times, I wanted to work in Overwatch. I wanted to, be part of this game. I just didn't know how. I didn't know what that would look like, or any of that. And so, I got my chance to work on the Chicago Overwatch a couple times. We did, we did a show online after the pandemic had started. Like I said, Showdown 2.5, whatever. We did that, and so time went on, and I missed, I kind of missed doing that work. And, I had other opportunities to work with other organizations. Tranquility did come into play. But 2021, I was like, you know what? I need to do something. I don't know what that is, but I need to do something. And, I had asked, I was trying to ask for permission, and I needed to ask for forgiveness in a certain way, because I was like, nope, if anybody's going to do this, it's going to be me. So what does that look like? And I was very fortunate that, I met, Univath through, a different organization. Jack Regular, who's also on the ELO Health staff, was a graphics person I also met in through Chicago Overwatch. And so I kind of like cobbled some of the resources together. The last piece was Kaiju Corp, which was also another offshoot of Chicago Overwatch. If you're keeping track of the story, and they gave me an opportunity to do their friends and family tournament, which is kind of also why the Will English IV, friends and family thing came from. And I kind of had all these pieces in place. I got this guy over here, I got this guy over here, I got this person over here. Why not us? Let's just do it. And so, I put together, I was like, the one thing I was worried about going into this was, I was like, man, I know how much is being spent on all these other tournaments. I know the bigger prize pools. So will it be enough? Can it be enough to make a difference? And so I was like, okay, $500 and a tweet. I put that tweet out there, and suddenly, all this attention that I've never, people that did not know me for Jack, and not to coin a phrase, started reaching out to me. It's like, hey, what's going on? And I'm like, okay. I was okay with just 8 teams, but we had 16 plus banging at our doors, and so what do we do? And so, again, thankfully, the relationships that I developed, Uni put together the Discord. We found other resources to put stuff together. I met Jack. I was like, okay, I need you on board. I had this crazy idea. So the Invitational is, for those that don't know, started off and still is a major Overwatch tournament for amateurs. And so we started off, I started off just thinking okay, if I wanted 8 teams in an Overwatch tournament, how would I put that together, get the experience, build that up? But it kind of caught fire, and now we're kind of one of the major amateur Overwatch tournaments outside of open division, outside of the official Blizzard stuff. We're kind of the big deal in the community. And so, but back then I didn't think I had all the resources. And so over time, again, through relationships, bring more people on board. I had this crazy idea during the first tournament to be like, let's just cover every single match. I was just like, guys, here's an opportunity. Let's cover every single match. I cobbled together 3.5 production teams. We got all the casters, and then of course, me getting stuck on a cast, all day, because I wasn't intending that. And we got through it, and we got through with 16 teams. Jack interviewed me, and I was just like, bro, this is way beyond anything I could have ever imagined. And so, we've continued on. We can talk more about, kind of what happened later on in the year, but during that moment, and then the last thing I will also admit was that, I put together the tournament hoping to get into ELO Hell Esports, and then Uni surprised me on Sunday by saying, I already had an interview with ELO Hell, during the show. I didn't even have to do the whole mixtape thing. It was just they're like, here it is, come on board. And so now that's a beneficial relationship, and partially why we're here. And so it's been absolutely insane, and I don't have enough time in this whole interview to talk about everything that's happened, but just that's where it started. And now it's kind of this thing. Now it's a business. Now now we have clients. Now we have other organizations and tournaments that want to work with us. And it all started with just kind of like, hey, let's, why not us? Let's do this. And so we've had a lot of stuff. And then Jack is, again, as a beneficiary, he, like I wanted him on board because of his spirit and his energy. That's kind of casting that I wanted to be a part of. He kind of inspired me in a way to kind of like, step up and do this thing. Cause I'm like, no, I want, this is what I want. I don't want people that are sounding like they're nuts. I don't want them, sound like they're boring and stiff. I want people that are excited and energized. That's the style that I want to deal with. And so later on, he tells me at a certain point, like, yeah, well, like he got into open division and contender trials before I did. And I was like, he's like, yeah, because you gave me a shot. And I'm like, are you serious right now? Okay. I was just trying to figure this out, man. Like like I tell people, you did the work. People did the work, whatever, and they've leveraged the invitational to do all sorts of things, like things that I never imagined. But my focus was like, nope, I want to get this done. I want to do this right. I want to do this and try to create opportunities not only for myself, like very selfishly for myself, but like I want to create. Now the mission is create opportunities for other people, and so we keep doing that, and it just keeps happening. So it's pretty cool.
Don't discount. I know you say like he did the work, but and Jack, if what I'm about to say is contrary to what you think, by all means, please correct me. But you cannot discount the importance of giving someone a shot, because although you say like, well, you did the work, you don't know what opportunities are out there unless someone says to you, this is the world that's open to you. So as much as I really respect that whole mindset of like, well, listen, you put in the work to do this. I just gave you the opportunity, but I do not want you to discount how important it is to be given an opportunity, especially in this industry, which can be sometimes very insulated and very closed off. And a lot of people that are in it are either in it because they've been here for forever, or they're holdovers from other industries. So make sure you give yourself the credit you deserve as well.
Yeah, that's gonna be very difficult for me, as Jack will attest to. But
Yes.
I just try to walk into this space because I understand that everything that's working against me, in a bunch of different dimensions and arenas. But like, I just try to remain humble, to remain grateful, and like for me, it's just like I have an opportunity. I can create something, and this is not the first iteration of something like this that I've tried over the years, and so this is the first one that's worked. And so a lot of people are kind of seeing the finished product, but what they don't know is, like, for me, I'm like, I've been trying to do this for the majority of my life, and now here it is. Here it is. And so now I'm like dedicated to it. Now this is my mission. It's like, if I can do this, and this is and putting this together helps other people, then like this energizes me. And so like I don't want everyone to go to my head. I've joked with people, like, look, if you find me if you find me at a club in Vegas, like sniffing cocaine off of a mirror somewhere, just slap some sense into me and tell me stop doing it. Like, well, you're better than this. Like, you're right. I'm better than this. Like I'm not that big. So but yeah, it's going to be difficult, and you'll figure it out as time goes on. But I try to take compliments, and I try to recognize the impact that I have. But it's very difficult for me because it's not in my nature. So I will always try to be like, nope, I appreciate that, but I'm trying to help others. I'm trying to pay it forward as much as humanly possible.
I got bad news for you, homie. You and I know each other now, so you're gonna have to get used to the compliments thing, because I'm gonna tell you. Jack, the next question I'm gonna have for you, but I have one more quick question, and I want to just get a quick rapid fire answer from Will on this. You said that you worked in the FGC, and in the FGC, I know from experience that there are a lot of grassroots kind of tournaments. You have your next level battle circuit, you have Wednesday night fights, and all these other smaller tournaments that then sometimes feed into bigger tournaments like CEO or combo breaker or things like that. Do you think your experience with those kind of fighting game tournaments helped you kind of inform how you were going to run the invitational?
Absolutely. Like the FGC tournaments have like upwards of 2,000 participants. I've worked at Evo. I've solved those problems. So like dealing with 16 teams, that I know 16 teams times 6 players plus everything else is, everybody's like, that's pretty daunting. But for me, I'm like, it's just 16 teams. Like I can do a top 8 bracket in my sleep, right? So like, yeah, that has definitely informed my experience. And like when I was trying to do 32 teams in my head, I'm just like, it's just 32 teams. It's not 32 times, X amount of players and stuff like that. So that's where it became overwhelming kind of later on in the year. But, for me, I'm just like, no, it's just 16 individual little units that I have to keep track of. And then, in a double elimination bracket, like half the teams go at a couple hours. And so like, I'm not worried about it. Right. But like, there are a lot of people that looked at me like I was nuts. It's like, why do you want to do 32 teams? Well, are you insane? I'm like, it's just 32. Like it's just a number. It's not like we were dealing with like 128 teams like other brackets, right? That have to kind of deal with some other seating issues and things like that. But no, the FGC is the perfect storm of bracketing and seeding and player management and everything else. And so like doing Overwatch was a breeze. It's just like whatever. I can deal with this. It's not an issue.
Dig that. That's good to hear. I was curious about that because when I heard you say it, I'm like, that sounds like that lines up. Okay, so Captain, Cap. Can I call you Cap? I'm gonna call you Cap for at least
Sure.
the next couple questions. Um, you guys just finished the Invitational, if I'm not mistaken, right? How do
It was just
you think it went, and how did it compare to other Invitationals that you've run or been a part of?
Okay. So I'm going to preface this by saying that I was although I started as a caster in Invitational 1, I kind of came onto the staff a little later in the game. There were some
Gotcha.
issues during IV2. People were needed to step up. I ended up being one of them. And, now I'm Will's right hand man. So that's kind of how that has progressed. So this year, as much as I love casting, I've been pouring a lot of energy and understanding into trying to learn the skills that it takes to be a good tournament organizer. And so with IV3, um, you know, for what it went well. To be completely honest with you, I mean, if you were paying attention to Twitter, of course, there were backlashes, there were issues, and it's unfortunate, but it happened.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, looking at the statistics of the viewership that came in, looking at the feedback that came in, both positive and negative, for the most part it was a good tournament. There's definitely a lot of room to be improved. I think, as Will and I both experienced and have talked about in length, we bit off a little bit more than we could chew this time around. Despite the fact that we had brought, an additional organization in to help us out with that, there were miscommunications and differences of strategy and things like that. So plans for the future are, not only will the invitational actually be an invitational, so it will now be invite only moving into IV4 and beyond. But on top of that, we are looking to keep it a lot more close knit. So more than likely, going back to IV1, no more than like 16 teams for both NA and EU. We've even had talks with some people about doing an Oceania one, possibly. We don't have a lot of roots there yet, but we're seeing what we can make happen. But needless to say, despite all of the issues that went down with IV3, now that we've kind of had a lot of time to like separate ourselves from how dramatic that was, and really look back at the work that we did the best that we could with the staff that we had. And I know a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, you have 30 plus staff listed in the server. They only work with us the day the tournament starts. Like they're only there to help us out with like TOing and whatnot, like when the tournament is active. But it's the four of us. It's myself, it's Red Gear, it's Uni, and it's Will that are doing all the groundwork. We're looking for sponsors, doing all of that behind the
Yeah.
scenes, registration, all that jazz. That was just on the four of us.
Yeah.
So it's rough. Needless to say, it's not the easiest, and we're always looking to add more to our mix. We got two amazing TOs, Acrinator and Lustica, who have been doing an amazing job working with us and helping us out with right now with the Toronto event we're working on. And As time goes on, we just hope to continue to grow our team. And like Will said, the goal is to keep pushing this into becoming a business. So not only do we want to create opportunities for people, we want to be able to pay people. We want to be able to have people be able to take care of their families and whatnot and make this like a living for folks, especially ourselves, because
Yeah.
we usually don't get paid for anything that we do for any of these. So
I I I understand. I've been in situations where you organize something and you realize you have to, when you look at, you want to pay your staff, you want to pay the people that are going to do it, and then once all of those people are taken care of, you find that you yourself end up having to kind of, sometimes you got to bite the bullet and you got to go, this is
Yeah.
bigger than me. This support needs to go to my casters and my organizers and things like that. So I have a question, and this is for both of you. So I want both of you to kind of give your feedback on this.
okay.
If someone in chat were to say, you know what, Will and Jack, kind of, that looks like a really cool thing to do here. You know what, I want to give that a shot myself. What advice would you give them besides the first, pray, drink a lot, meditate, extort? Besides those important core pieces of advice, what other advice would you give them to someone who wanted to build a similar project to the Invitational? Doesn't have to be within Overwatch. It can be any Invitational style tournament of any game. What advice would you give them?
Well, well, first of all, you gotta be a little nuts. Like you definitely, like I admit that I'm not mentally sane in certain aspects. That like I push the envelope where I probably shouldn't have, and I pay for it physically in certain. No, but in all honesty, part of what I think, what I would attribute is like number one. I knew from the first moment that I wouldn't be able to do this by myself. I just accepted it, and then after the second invitational, when we did this in April, I knew that we basically had a business, and I had to think about it like a business. We run into a lot of organizations and people that think that like it's just easy. It's just like with a stroke of a pen and a fling of a wand, they can put this whole event together. And I'm like, you guys need to know. You guys better be damn well sure. Like no, you have to think about this like a business. You have to think about every single piece. My job at the invitational at this point is not even to be part of the event. My job is to establish process, funnel. I got to go out and hunt and funnel new work, which is why I'm very grateful for having Jack on my team. Where I go, here's an opportunity. Jack, can you massage this and get this put to whatever, and then like we keep passing down the opportunity going forward. The other thing that I tried to do, which was kind of to wrap up a little bit on the IV3 feedback, was that you know I looked at IV3 as I need to delegate myself 100% out of this whole process. Like that, like if I want this to be successful, then I cannot be the bottleneck. I can't, like, no one needs to use me as a crutch and say, well, Will said this, and so therefore we're going to do X, Y, and Z. It's like, nope. It's like this person, Jackson in charge of operations, Ewan's in charge of production, Greg is in charge of graphics and branding and stuff like that. And so I've been trying to make sure to funnel those different things between those people and be like, nope. If Jack says this, and Jack may do something that I disagree with, but at the same time, I have to support him, in the decisions he's making, because he's got to figure that out for himself, right? So like, I can't say, well, I would do it this way, and this is whatever. It's like, no, like part of building a team says, I have to trust you, not 100%, right? But like I have to have some trust in you that you're going to be able to execute on this well. And if you can't, then we all don't survive, right? And so and that's just me as kind of like a leader in this space. As far as some of the other strategic stuff that I'm a part of, like I advocate for strategy. I don't want to do things like everyone else does them. I want to do them, my way, and I own that, right? So it's just like I've had people make criticisms about the broadcast, or they're like, I would do things this way. I'm like, that's great, but there's a reason why my name's on the tournament. It's like, this is the way I want to do it, right? And so I try to offer that, to my teams, like, okay, this is a strategy that I think of. Take with it what you will, and then they go about that and execute. And so now our team is growing to the point where we're self-sufficient. Now we're like, yeah, cool. But like I don't knock anybody wanting to try this. I just tell people, like, look, I learned very on the like I had to take my ego out of the equation. I had to, like, and I've been accused of this on numerous occasions, like, Will, this is all ego. I'm like, trust me on this. If you know me, you've met me, you've worked with me, I want like my name's on the door, and that's about it. Everything else is every other person you interact with is on our team. They're here for a reason. They want to be here, right? That has nothing to do with whether like I could care less, right? I mean, I'm not saying that to say that like I don't care about the event. I'm just like for me, I know what I'm getting out of it, and I've made that very clear with my team, my squad. Everyone else is like they want to do this. Uni all it cares about is production. Like we have Ocean from the EU. All he wants to do is cast. That's 110% fine. We will give you that's the job you want to do. That's 100% fine. If you want to do something else, you do something else, right? But like I just think like for me, I treat it like a business, set up processes, try to give ownership to people, enable them to work or whatever, which sounds like, again, sounds like a, start, create your own business 101 or whatever, but like that's effectively what I'm doing. And I'm surprised, like for me, I'm surprised it's working so well, because in other areas of the business that I tried to, level up, it's like, it takes a while, you need clients, all this other stuff, you need cash flow. There's a lot of other problems that you may have to compromise on your principles, but for this, it's like a lot of people come in because they're leveraging it to get something else out, and that's the best I can do. I'm like, great, well, please use this as a reel. Please use this as your experience. Please use this as your mixtape to do other opportunities, because that's the best I can do right now. And then when the money starts rolling in, which is starting to do now, which is still shocking to me, I'm like, okay, we got money coming in. It's like, now I got to take care of people like Jack, and then Uni, and then finally myself, and then we'll see about expanding it even further. But that's another story for another time. But for right now, it's just like, don't like if you want to do this for fun, do this for fun, and don't overcommit, and don't think of this as like, oh yeah, it's just gonna be a fun little whatever. There are so many people that come to me, it's like, oh my god, it's like we can do this way better than you can. I'm like, please do come up, please compete with us, like take us down, because I shouldn't be the only person out here doing this, right? I thought we had like a huge ton of competition, but like we really don't. It's just like it's our job to lose effectively, and so we just move forward with that.
Yeah. To add on to that, I'd say that if you're looking to start this, you have to have, first off, a ton of patience, not only with others, but with yourself. I cannot tell you how many times I get asked basic rulebook questions all the time. It's so exhausting. But every time I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll help you out. It's in the rule book on this page if you want to go check that out. Or I might even be a little bit nicer and actually tell them like what it actually says. But like there's always going to be problematic teams. You're always going to run into issues. So along with the patience aspect, be sure to do your best to take care of the people that are there for you. So, like Will said, until recently, Will and I haven't made a dime off of this, because every time we are pouring everything that we can to make sure casters are getting paid, productions are getting paid, staff are getting compensated for their time as best as possible, things like that, because we want them, even if it's a little chaotic, even if it doesn't work out the way that we want to, and we don't get to pay them what we believe they deserve, we're at least able to give them something and show them that we appreciate them. And uh, I would never want someone walking away from the invitational or any event that we run saying, "Oh, well, I put in all this work and I didn't get anything out of it."
Yep.
No,
No.
if that ever happens, please come knock at my door, because I can guarantee you that is never going to be the case. We appreciate every single person that has ever worked with the Invitational and who will continue to work with the Invitational moving forward, because like Will said, like, we can't do this alone. Like, we could try, but
Yeah.
it definitely would not work out to our benefit. That's for sure. So patience, taking care of your community, and for the love of God, I learned this during IV3. Don't be on social media during the tournament. Just like
Mm-mm.
We need a social media manager so bad, and as soon as we do, I'm never touching social media during a tournament again. It's never happening. Oh, so frustrating.
I can
All
imagine
you
that.
social media managers out there, love you so much because can only imagine what you deal with.
I can imagine the chaos of that. Like I have a hard time reading chat when I'm streaming and I know that I'm playing poorly because I know that there's a chance that someone just came in for the first time and they're watching me be real bad and they're talking just copious amounts of vitriolic shit. Not
Mhm.
just talking shit, but not just talking a little copious amounts of vitriolic shit is in the chat. And sometimes you just
Right.
gotta just put on them blinders. Like I know it's there. I'm just not gonna pay attention. But then you also sometimes have those lovely moments when Jaw TV, who was in our chat, noticed my hat and was like, I see Alchemist repping the best class in Destiny. And I'm like, see, I like that dude already. So I've worked as a host for a couple of events. Some of them have been like bigger events. Like I was one of the hosts for the Seattle Indies Expo, which is normally kind of held concurrently with PAX, and I also was a host for IndieCade. And those two experiences, there was a lot of things that I learned about doing those two experiences that I don't think I would have realized otherwise. And I've kind of afterwards, kind of in my head, went like, well, there's pieces of advice that I would give myself if I would have talked to myself 3 years ago before this became a thing. What advice, like this is advice I would give myself. So I want to ask each of you, because I know we're getting close to our hour, and I'm not sure if they're gonna like cut us off at the hour. But I
Oh, well,
do have
I was told we could talk as long as we want because Will
oh,
and
because
I,
we going to.
if we can do anything, Will and I
yeah,
can talk.
Oh,
we're,
we can
we're paid to
We
do
get
definitely.
that.
on for like we get on in a meeting for like a quick 5 minute meeting. It's an hour later by the time we're done because we just go all sorts of.
Dope.
I
Then I'm
mean, we
not gonna
get the work
feel
done. Don't get me wrong, but
right, right, right.
it is
But you gotta.
always a
You
good.
sometimes you gotta run them gum. You
Exactly.
gotta run the gums. Okay, so
Yep.
but with that being said, like I know the advice I would have given myself 3 years ago when I
Hmm.
first started doing this, when I first started looking at doing this beyond just being a streamer. What advice would you give to people who either A want to start casting or they're wanting to kind of go into that realm or producing esports content. And so I'm going to split this up and I'm going to give Jack the casting question because that seems like something that fits in his wheelhouse. And I'm gonna give Will the producing esports because he produced the tournament. So you guys can choose who goes first, but what piece of advice would you give to some stranger in chat who's like, I want to start casting or I want to start producing esports?
I'll go ahead and start things
Yeah,
off
go
if you
go go
don't
for it.
mind, Will, because it's really simple. Do it. That there's nothing wrong with giving it a try. That's literally what it comes down to. I cannot tell you how many people are always in my DMs like, I don't know how I feel about, doing casting or whatnot. I'll be like, hey, I got 30 minutes free. Let's put a VOD up and you can cast with me.
Mhm.
Like I do mock castings with people all the time. I do or a couple of months ago I was doing where I would bring in other casters and we would VOD review and stuff like that, or we'd practice. And like anything, it takes work to be good at it, but to get your foot in the door, just you know find your place. There are several communities, like we've been saying, our goal is to provide people with opportunities. One of the things that I loved about what we did with IV3, although I don't know how much people really paid attention to it, is we gave a lot of tier 4 organizations kind of like an open door to be able to do additional broadcasts with us. One of the ones that I absolutely love, mostly because I work with them, is the Crusaders organization. For those of you that don't know, that's Johnny Cruz, like the voice actor of Lucio. That's his server. And I was able to we brought in their production folks and their casters. I worked with them.
Amazing
I
moment,
helped.
by the way. Life changing for
Yeah.
me.
We
It's like
got them all set up, and their casters, they knocked it out of the park. They had a great time. And so being able to Take opportunities as they come to you. You know, even if you're not 100% sure, just give it a shot. That's really all you have to do. If it doesn't work out, you don't have to do it again, but you know, maybe it's something you'll like, or maybe you'll find something else that kind of diverges. You know, if I had never started casting, I would have never started TOing, and that's kind of what pretty much all I do now. So
Yeah. The only advice I would give to someone that wants to get started in this whole space is like, not only to Captain Jack's point about just get started, like I started my esports production career with a webcam and a USB 3 capture card, and it looked like crap, but I did it, and then over time, there like I do rail against certain producers being very kitschy, like they don't want to share their secrets with me because then in theory it would just they would lose opportunities by teaching me the craft, as it were. So
Mhm.
I personally I rail against that. I'm like, no, if you have a question about it and you want to know anything about my process
Mhm.
at all, stop me, let me know. I will
Mhm.
tell you everything, because everything that I do is available to everyone. Like this is like there's some software and some skills that you need actual experience to work on, but like
Mhm.
everything else that we do and all the bells and whistles you see on most of the broadcasts stuff like that is OBS. It's an open source software.
Mhm.
Truth, like I, I've written some software that we will eventually release that will also provide opportunities. So the idea is like you want to do an Overwatch show, kind of like how we do the Invitational. Here's some software. It's out of the box. Go go do that. Whatever. So like it's
Mhm.
things like that where it's just like I'm working to make this profession a little bit more accessible, because just as you like, even we joked about at the beginning of the broadcast, good producers are hard to find, and a lot of people are somewhat discouraged because they think, oh my god, it's so huge. This is whatever. I'm like, guys, start small. Most of the people that are either casting or producing and stuff like that, which is the second part of my advice, is just like relationship building. Like focus on networking, finding those people that are in part of it, reach out to them, because a lot of people are like me, that we think we're alone. We think that there's no one out there that actually appreciates or understands what we do, and then you find out very quickly that no, that's really not the case. A lot of the opportunities, because people have emailed me like, how did you get in esports? How did you, and if I'm being honest, all relationships, every single one of it. I started my streaming career with a relationship from college, of all places. I got my job. I write at esports.gg. I'm not a writer, and I just started, but like I had a relationship from someone at BlizzCon that got me the opportunity. I got into ESL, same drill. But like but then once you get those opportunities, is then you respect them, you work, you work
Yeah.
your ass off, and then it opens doors for other things. And so a
Mhm.
lot of people like, again, they're seeing the finished product, they're seeing like the latter end of it. But for
Mhm.
me, I'm like, my thing is always about like, and also to Jack's point about working for the Invitational. I don't want you to ever work for our event and come away with a negative experience. And I will give you the shirt off my back literally to rectify that, right? And so
Mhm.
it's the same Joe's, like my relationships are paramount, and that's the other thing that like I stress. That's the thing I talk about with Captain Jack, almost every day. Is like, make sure that our relationships are sound, because
Mhm.
I want those to build the foundation for future opportunities and stuff like that. And so a lot of people again discern that they'll treat you like crap, or they think that like that what they're doing is in a vacuum. And I'm like, guys, it comes back. Like even some of the
Mhm.
players that have interacted with us. You think that you think we don't talk? You think that like you're gonna get into the Overwatch League with that kind of attitude? You're not.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
it's kind of been a wake up call for a lot of these players and stuff like that. So I preach that. I just like relationships, relationship building, networking, even when you don't need it. The thing about it is like some people will start networking because they want something and it's very obvious that they want something. But networking before you even need it. Build a network before you even need to have, because who knows, right? Who freaking knows? Right. But that's kind of like kind of the secret to my success. But like and then the last thing is like, yeah, I mean like I hate the line about faking it until you make it, but just like I try to
Mhm.
get out of my own way. It's just like it's
Mhm.
less about just doing it, but like there's this idea of like, well, I need to improve, I need to do X, Y, and Z. I'm like, look, I'm not going to be in the Overwatch League anytime soon, but I'm gonna improve over time. I tell myself every event,
Mhm.
I want to improve this 20%. Sometimes that 20% puts me at 120 and overwhelms me, but that's my
Mhm.
goal. Like I want to make it better every single time. And with it, look at how much we've done in within a year, right?
Right.
like even for me mentally, I'm like, yeah, we'll get to the level, we'll get to IV3 level sometime in 2023. It'll be like January 2023. We'll be like, no, we're here now, and so it's like, all right, well, I guess that's what we're playing. But there are a lot of people that get stuck in this idea that, like, if they're not as good as Overwatch League casters, if they're not getting the right feedback or whatever, then they want to stop in the checks. I'm like, no, keep going, because who knows? Like there are Dota 2 casters that were just basically casting in their closets, like 8 people online are now working on the international. I'm like,
Mhm.
so that's how esports works for me, and it's weird. It's so weird that, like, I have to work so hard in other areas of my life, but in esports, if you're competent, if you can treat people well, if you can take leadership and direction and stuff like that, you can do whatever the heck you want to do, right? So, like, why
Yeah.
like why not? But there's a lot of people that see it from the outside, and it's like, that's not the case. I'm like, no, it is the case, and I'm living proof of that. Like I like, if you would ask me at the beginning of the year if I'll be doing any of this stuff, I'm like, the answer is no. I did not see myself doing that, but now here I am. I have an opportunity to do it, and I'm going to take it and see where this goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I It's one of those things, and it's funny that you say that, because the one of the pieces of advice that I realized I would give myself back like 3 years ago is, it doesn't have to be perfect. It
Right.
just has to be done. And
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things that, like, I look at, just in terms of just in terms of streaming, right? And I'm going to use that as a small example, because a lot of people don't realize, if streaming is your end goal, you're already shooting yourself in the foot. Like, you should always be
Mhm.
looking to do something outside of this. So for me, it was one of those, like, I streaming was difficult because I had a full-time job, and I was always like, I don't really have the thing that I need. I don't have that je ne sais quoi to be a streamer.
Mhm.
And I remember I was sitting in my living room, and I had done a couple of small streams. Like, I didn't even have a camera. Like, I was streaming through my Xbox. Like, it wasn't great.
Mhm.
And I was playing PUBG, and I was just me. I wasn't in a party with anyone or anything. And my wife is kind of like in the kitchen, kind of like moving around. And I jumped in a window on Sanok, which is the smaller island map. And I remember jumping in a window. There was an enemy there, and I remember saying, like, "Hey, dog, you want some Girl Scout cookies?" And then she, like, shot the dude. And so my wife, who was like doing dishes, immediately, like, goes stone silent. So I think something happened. So I, like, stop looking. I kill the guy. I stop looting. I look over at her, like, to make sure she's okay. And she goes, "Are you streaming?" And I'm like, "No." She goes, "Oh, okay." Goes back to washing dishes. And then she stops and she goes, "That was fucking funny." And I was like, "What do you mean?" She goes, "That was funny. Like, dude, when you stream, like you said, you've been having a hard time with kind of getting your getting your voice and getting your cadence. Do that." And I'm like, "What?
Mhm.
Randomly scream to someone if they want Girl Scout cookies?" She goes, "No. Those funny thoughts in
Yes.
your head, say them out loud. Because
Mhm.
that will be the thing that makes people go, this guy is entertaining. I want to watch him."
Mhm.
And through just opening up and doing that, and just, like, not turning myself down when I'm on camera, but also not turning myself up, because, like you said, you don't like the idea of fake it till you make it. And I also don't like that concept, but I do like, you have to practice. I do subscribe to the 10,000 hours before you're a master technique, and you have to
Mhm.
it's I know it's a cliche, but it's one of those things that I look at how I am as a host today compared
Mhm.
to how I was as a host a year ago at Seattle Indies, and it's a night and day difference. I am
Yeah.
more myself. I am more comfortable. I'm willing to take a few more risks on some jokes than I am on others. I can read my co-host to know if a joke doesn't quite land. You just kind of sweep it under the rug and keep moving. But the idea of
Mhm.
just do it is something that should not be limited to just Nike. First of all, that's just the way this goes. I
Yeah.
Mhm.
fell backwards into a hosting gig because I like my time being with Elo Hell was one of those things that I fell backwards into, and I'm so happy that I did, because I ended up going to an event during PAX weekend and making a friend at the PAX event, and not realizing that the friend that I made was someone who was with Elo Hell. So they were like, "Hey, are you interested in doing, like, casting and hosting?" I'm like, "Well, I kind of do hosting now, but it's small scale." And she goes, "Uh-huh, are you interested in doing it?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, of course I am." And now I'm doing these interviews, and I'm like, "Oh, this is kind of like, this is it. Like, we're doing the thing we want to do."
Mhm.
So okay, I have another question. This is kind of unrelated to the last thing. But this event, right? I assumed that you at some point were doing live events, like LAN events. And then of course during the pandemic, you had to switch to online events because the world shut down. How does working a LAN event differ from working an event online? Because some people think that those two things are very much the same, and
Mm-mm.
they are. I
Ooh.
like I want you to kind of touch on that because I know just in terms of talking and breaks and things like that, that working a LAN event versus working an online event feels like a night and day difference. So
Mhm.
what's your kind of take on that as well?
Do you want to go first, Jack, or do you want me to?
No, you have more experience in this arena than I do, so go
Yeah,
for it.
so the funny thing about like adjusting online, a lot of so I tell people that I did this in person. So I did a lot of FGC events. I traveled to do a lot of FGC events, and so like I'm used to like packing things in a suitcase, like 50 pounds or whatever, and being able to produce this massive show with all the cameras and lights and monitors and everything else. So that was my default, and then I had to learn how to do this online where your limitation is bandwidth and stuff like that. And so it was a very interesting experiment at Lakeside Showdown 3, which is kind of like the first land for a lot of people. So like Uni came down and Jack came down to the event, where I was like, I just sat back a little bit. I'm like I know what it takes to put together a live event, but I wanted to see how our producer was going to deal with it, because like it was kind of like his first event, and you need more hardware. You need like cables back and forth, like signals might get crossed, microphones, all that other stuff. We tried it there was a lot that and there's also debate in the industry about like OBS is kind of like the free standard, but like there's this software called vMix that you have to pay for. That's
Hmm.
kind of the industry standard if you're going to use that. There's also hardware switching that I'm learning. So there's all sorts of stuff that goes into it. But like I try to simplify it. Like when I get to a land, I'm like my goal is to the minimum effective response to do stuff. There were some things we wanted to execute that we just didn't have the staff for, but it's definitely like the act of like physical hardware and troubleshooting all that, and troubleshooting audio boards, the whole 9 yards. Like those are individual skills that I've had to learn over years. And so it's funny, like people are like, oh, like this is online and it's so easy because like you're just bringing in all the feeds, you're just limited by bandwidth, like everything's all like automated and stuff like that. I'm like, nah, man, this is a completely different beast. And so, and then the other aspect of the land too is that like all the people were in the room, and so like you kind of have this online thing where like we're very fortunate that in with Ignite Gaming and Skokie, we have enough PCs to sit down all the teams and have them play their matches and stuff like that. But like that's one disadvantage we have from working online. Online, everybody's sitting at home on their PCs and they can play whenever as long as the match is ready. But in this particular case, like there's some physical aspect to it. Like people have to get up and move, and then people have to sit down, warm up, and change out their stuff. And so there adds a little bit of things to that. And then like fatigue becomes an issue because you're not at home, you're not whatever, you're in someplace else. So I mean, Jack can speak more to that, but for me, it's completely different, and also it's real time. Online, you kind of have a little bit of a leeway ish. You can kind of play
Hmm.
play the numbers a little bit and say like, well, you had technical issues and stuff like that. Like, no, there's real effects going on. If
Mhm.
something happens and like your feed drops or whatever, it's like it's public. So you not only have this online audience that like people are sitting here and watching on Twitch, now you've got this in-person like thing, and you get affected by that. We had cheers from the
Mhm.
crowd, which is really fun and cool when it's going on. So like it was mostly the parents of Bear Claw Gaming, but
Right.
it's still a real thing that you got to deal with. It's like, oh crap,
Mhm.
like there's other element of it, but like it's worth it. It's fun. I mean, we're hoping that it's going to be a bigger spectacle than normal, but it's definitely a sight to behold, and it's definitely a skill. Like I tell people,
Mhm.
like doing the online thing is very coddling. 'Cause again, you have a lot of control over your environment. You're not dealing with like all sorts of stuff live and in person, especially if you want to go bigger. If you want to get like work for the Blizzards, the Riots, the esports engines, the Halo, whatever. It's like yeah, there's a level of complexity that's even beyond my reach right now, that I'm trying to learn and work with. So, the small stuff that the stuff I work on is I try to simplify, I try to make it very easy and automated, as opposed to what like as opposed to like an online show where it's like, oh, I can just throw all this stuff in, I can have this, I can recompose the scene, I can do X, Y, and Z, but there might be other limitations. But Jack on the other hand, like he was TLing while he was there and had kind of like a little bit of different experience.
Yeah, I mean, so I kind of got into this while the pandemic was raging, so I never got to have kind of the land experience before the fact, and eventually I actually should be heading to one here in another week as this next weekend as well up in Boston, but uh, getting to kind of see the in-person aspect of it, it's just like Will said, like there's so much more work that goes into it. Like for me, typically I'm sitting here with my 3 screens. Like if I'm doing an online tournament, like I've got all my tabs open. Like if I need to go talk to somebody, I just flip through a Discord channel. Like everything's here. That doesn't happen at a lot. You can't as easily, like you sometimes have to literally go hunt people down to go get them where you need to be. Like I think the funnest part was that for the interviews, like we literally had gophers like go get that player and bring them back to us. This is where they're at. And so kind of transitioning and understanding more of kind of the how the LAN aspect works between a setup, organization of the space. Like Will said, you're dealing with a finite number of computers, so you have to make sure that you're organizing the time for each team properly, that they have time to log in and set up and warm up and all that stuff. It was really just kind of eye opening to me, and needless to say, I was if you walk away from working a LAN and you are not absolutely dead tired, you didn't do it right. I'm gonna
Yeah.
be completely honest with you. But it was the most fun that I've ever had. I always love being able to meet people that I've been working with or interacting with online, and being able to meet Will and Uni and NPC and so many others for the first time. It's just it was just such a good feeling. So, is it more work at a LAN? Yes, but is it fun and challenging and exciting? Also, yes.
Well, I I feel like with all of the talk of how much fun you've had and how enjoyable the process was and the changes you're going to make to the invitational, I feel like the most obvious question now for both the people at home and maybe me, because I might be talking to you guys about helping you guys out. What's next? What's next for like what is IV4 going to look like? What's next for the invitation? What's the
Well,
future look like?
all I have to say is like the future is bright for us, and one of the things that has been amazing about this year, just taking the risk, diving in, being 100% committed to it, executing, following through, and everything else. We're kind of now, again, we're kind of melding into a business now. Like we're taking on clients. We have the Toronto Defiant event coming up in a couple weeks. We have a couple other clients that we can't wait to share with you all once we get the details finalized and everything else. Um, the invitation will always be a community event. I don't ever want it to be something where like people don't feel like they're invited. And I know we're doing like invite only, but just we're trying to service as many teams as want to be part of the process as possible. Like we have a community that we've kind of built, and we want to make sure that people have the same opportunities we do, right? Like we wouldn't pass those along. And so I don't ever want the invitation to not be a community event. But and it seems that it's going to be that way. But like for now, doing the hard work this year is providing a lot of opportunities for everyone else next year, and I'm excited for that. So we'll see it as time goes on, but just like we definitely like for me, I'm just proud that like we have a staff. I'm grateful that we have Jack and everybody on our staff that wants to work with us and make this possible. And outside of that, we like I can't wait. Like I literally cannot wait for stuff. We're going to be getting into other games. We're going to be working with other people. And again, when I talk about relationships, I have relationships that I haven't even leveraged yet. Where we're trying to build the foundation to make that call. One of the things I wanted for the future was to be able to like go after HCS contracts and go after League of Legends contracts and stuff like that. Where we're like, hey, we can be a third party service that can provide that, and I think it's sorely needed. The other thing I'll also add is kind of like a personal mission of mine is to like I want more diversity in this whole space. I want that to be a thing. And so part of me having to get out of my comfort zone and be on camera and be the voice, as it were, is like, no, I want you to see my face and see, like, we can do this too. We're not isolated to, just playing or being host or just being on the sidelines here. We can actually do the work. And so I champion that. And with the event, I try to make sure that, we're diverse, we're welcoming, to all, LGBTQ, the whole 9 yards. Cause I don't want that to be buried in, some nonsense. So that's the only soapbox political thing that I'll get into, but just that is something that, like, it's very, like, it should be very obvious from there. And then, we'll see, but just like, we keep getting opportunities. We keep getting stuff handed to us. We want to build that. And hopefully by the end of next year, it'll be a very sustainable business. We talked with, and of course, EHE has been very instrumental as a partner for that. So, like, we kind of had this whole long strategic session, and like, okay, I guess we're going in the right direction because we're being spoken to as business, as an actual business entity. So that's great for me because that's something that I've always wanted, and like I said, I'm very grateful for everyone that's a part of it in past, present, and future. And so the future is extremely bright for us.
That's dope. I'm very happy to hear that the future is bright for you guys, and I'm happy to see this kind of went from a grassroots, just one guy thing to where you're building this out and you're getting those opportunities. I'm if I'm even if I don't end up helping out with it, I need you to know that this is going to be on my radar for forever now because
It should be.
I've got to talk to you guys. I've got to see this and getting to see how the sausage is made goes a long way in not only improving your appreciation of other tournaments and other events, but it's just cool to see someone go, I have an idea, I have a thing I want to make, and then they make it, they do it. You watch the growing process. It's just a cool thing to watch.
Yeah.
But okay, we're getting close to time, so now I'm gonna switch to some rapid fire questions. All right. Some of these are going to be slightly irreverent, but the last one I ask is going to be one that you're going to have to really consider. Okay. So
that's fine.
just forewarning. So first off, if you could only play one video game again for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Chrono Trigger.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
Jack?
Oh, just one.
I just went top of mind. I mean, like, there's others that I would consider, but
top of mind. Jack
yeah, I think it has to be BioShock. That's my go-to.
Okay. I think mine would be Armored Core 3, Armored Core Last Raven.
Wow.
That would be mine.
Okay, that's a deep cut.
I'm gonna, and also, chat, in case you haven't realized, for these quick fire questions, I'm also gonna give my answer as well, so that I'm not just sitting here on my host box. So I got to be on the spot too. Okay. After casting or producing a long event for a long tournament or just a long day of casting, you can have any meal. What's your meal?
Steak and potatoes.
Okay.
Like medium rare.
Ooh.
Nice. I'm usually pretty simple. Pizza, hamburger and fries, something like that.
Okay. For me, I live in Seattle, so sushi. There's lots of good sushi around here. So there's an excellent sushi joint that's not far from my apartment. And if you two gentlemen are ever in the Seattle area, let me know. I will take you to it. It's spectacular.
All right.
You mentioned pizza, so this next question is gonna go to Jack first,
God.
and then Will.
Oh God.
All right.
Question
I'm
is
gonna
the
sit back.
two-part.
I'm gonna sit back.
It's a two-part question. Part one, favorite pizza topping, and part two, does pineapple go on pizza?
Oh, geez.
Yeah,
I thought we were gonna go a different route with that one, but okay. So I'm a meat lovers guy, so as long as it's meat, it goes on pizza.
Okay.
And as much as I like the sweet and the savory, not a huge pineapple fan, so doesn't go on mine.
Okay.
It can go on yours though.
Okay.
I'm extremely simple because I live in Chicago, which is a pizza town. And so I'm pepperoni only. I maybe sometimes pepperoni and green pepper, sometimes pepperoni and mushroom, sometimes pepperoni and sausage, but like most of the time default is pepperoni, straight up, and no pineapple. I don't even know where the heck that came from, but like there are people like, oh my God, like pineapple and bacon is the best thing since sliced bread. And I'm like, excuse me, no, like no, thank you. Take that Papa John stuff and get, just leave it somewhere else.
All right, chat. Remember I jokingly said to Will, like, I'd really be interested in working with you on this. This is gonna be where he tells me that he doesn't want to work with me. Half of my family on my dad's side is from New York. So
Mhm.
that's pizza. What you guys have in
Oh
Chicago
yeah.
is a casserole. I don't care what you say. It's a
Yes.
casserole in
Thank
dough. I do not
you.
care
Thank
what you say.
you.
And
See,
pineapple
that's
goes on pizza. I don't care what anybody says. Pineapple and ham on some pizza, mwah, spectacular. Now,
You
I
know,
say that I will 100% eat. I 100% while living in Detroit. Me and one of my best friends drove from Michigan, from Detroit, Michigan, to Chicago to get Chicago style pizza. It is
mhm.
it is delicious,
oh, okay,
but
okay, okay, okay,
but
okay,
Yeah.
but
okay.
there are
I was about to have a
Yeah.
moment here where I'm like,
there are certain jokes I
excuse
have to
me.
there are certain jokes I have to make as a host, and part of
Mhm.
the thing of being a good host is being a fine purveyor of controlled chaos, and that is what I do. All right, so next question. Favorite
Hold on, hold
place?
on. I just want to
Oh,
say that
okay.
the ban list for the Invitational is extremely short. You were on it for about 65 seconds, and then I was like, all right, all right, all right, all right, all right. I will reconsider the ban after this whole conversation. But like, don't do anyway. Like we can talk. Like I said,
Chat,
I'm very opinionated about pizza. But go ahead.
All
chat.
I gotta
This is
say is pizza is a hand food. That's all I gotta say. Pizza is a hand food.
knife and fork starts to get a little questionable, but
Yeah, I'm just
I did eat
saying.
my
Just
Chicago
saying.
style pizza in my hand though,
I have
because
the same argument with my wife all the time. So
if you're not getting messy eating your food, it's not worth it. So
you
you can
right.
have Chicago style pizza, and there are people who eat it with a knife and fork, but I eat it with my hands because I am a primitive carnivore, and that's just how I am.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Also, chat. Another thing, another little tip: if you ever want to try and get into hosting and get into jobs, if you have an opinion that might run contrary to the person that you're working for,
Own it.
take that opinion and stick it under your hat until the offer letter is signed, and then so long as it's not a horrible, like, we're not talking a horrible opinion, all right, we're not talking crappy stuff, but like
Mhm.
the pizza opinion, right, that goes under my hat and it stays there. Once I sign the contract, I can go, okay, cool, contract signed, everything's good, cool. By the way, pineapple does belong on pizza, and Chicago pizza is a casserole. I already got my contract, I'm out later. But okay,
Oh
next quick
goodness.
fire question. Favorite
Mhm.
place you have been to? I want this as both as a host or caster, and then in your personal
Mm.
life. What's the favorite place you've been to?
Um. Okay. So, God. Okay, I have to answer this by saying that I wasn't a host or caster in either one of these situations,
Okay.
but it'll make sense once I talk about it. So
Okay.
I worked for ESL one Chicago or sorry Intel Extreme Masters. I'm sorry.
Okay.
When they were in Chicago, I'm standing on the floor of the United Center, where the Bulls have played, and I've never, stepped on before. They didn't have the court down, unfortunately, but like it was like I'm staying in the house that Jordan built,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm watching Counter Strike, in whatever. I'm like, oh my god, how the heck did I get here? And then that's a close second to me standing on the floor of the of Mandalay Bay at Evo, and then seeing my name in lights, seeing my name in the description screen or whatever, and I'm like, uh okay. And then having my coworkers ask me, so what did you do this weekend? I'm like, I was at a conference, I just watched Grey's Anatomy in my hotel room. It was kind of boring, it's like I can explain.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And then for me as a person, me personally, as I've traveled, funny enough, because I traveled so much in the United States, I'm like, yeah, I have some favorite spots. Cali is always a spot that I like to go back to, someplace
Mm-hmm.
warm. But like, actually, I got a chance to travel to Edinburgh, Scotland,
Nice.
2019 pre-pandemic, and I want to go back so desperately because it was such an amazing experience. Just the top to bottom, like we experience like actual history when they're talking about like the stuff that's actually happened. You can I'm like, no, this is actual history, right? When people are talking about, oh yeah, stuff that's happening in the United States, like it's happened, right? But you can't really imagine because you can't see it. But like some of the stuff that's existed during those wars and during those conflicts for Scotland are still there. You can still see
Yeah.
it, touch it, and you're like, holy shit, this is mind blowing. So like, I definitely want to get back. Not just for the whiskey, but this like for just the history. I was never really a history buff until I started like seeing it in person. And I'm like, no, you guys, you need to experience this at least once, and then go do
Mm-hmm.
something else. So
I knew I
that's
liked Will. I knew I liked Will. The minute I didn't even know, I knew I liked him. I had an intuition, and then he said whiskey, and now we buddies. Whatever you say
Oh
pizza is,
geez.
homie, I'm with you. So long as we drinking together. All right, Jack, what you got?
Single malt Scotch is my thing.
Well, I have only had one like in-person casting gig, so I guess Skoki's gonna have to be the answer for that one. But my favorite place that I've ever been, I mean, there's so I was a submariner when I got out of high school. I was in the U.S. Navy for 5 years, and I gotta say the best place that I've ever been is sitting in the sail in the middle of the Mediterranean. You know, sun's bright in the sky. It's like kind of fall-ish, getting a little cooler, and there's just water far as the eye can see. No land in sight. That was one of the I didn't get to go a lot of places because I was essentially like a beta tester for the new submarines. Like that ended up being my job. But so I was in the States my entire tour. But man, just going out and just being able to experience just the gravity of being that far away from civilization, it's incomparable. Like one of these days when I'm old and gray and have my kids are taken care of and whatnot, I'll probably get a boat and I'll go do it again, and just be out there with the wife and just kind of take it all in again. One of these days.
So, okay, I'm gonna give my answer to this one. I'm gonna make it really quick. As a civilian, my favorite place that I've been to was San Diego, because I got to stand with my feet in the sand, looking out at the Pacific, and that was one of the first times in my life that I realized just how small I was. And
Wow.
and it was something that was cool. It was an amazingly humbling moment, because you get to have this realization of all of your problems kind of just melt away, because you realize like there's so much more going on this blue marble, that my little bullshit that I'm worried about is not that big of a deal. So I definitely understand that. Also, as a content creator and host, I got to walk around PAX. I want to say it was 2018, on the Thursday before the show opened. So I'm just walking through. There's no one there. It's completely empty. It was the year that Resident Evil 7 came out, so they had this really cool like farmhouse where they had the Resident Evil VR in, and just being able to walk around a convention like that with no one else around, it gives you a completely different um experience,
Wow.
because it's just you. It's just you and the
Yeah.
few people that are walking around with you. And you mentioned that you were a submariner. I was in the Air Force, and I'll tell you about what my job was after the stream. But the coolest place that I went while enlisted was Yokota Air Base in Japan, because it's one of
Nice.
those places that you go to and you're just like, yeah, okay, this country has been around. Like as much as I have some of that patriotic kind of, so the stuff that's programmed into you as a soldier, you have that bit of patriotism. When you go to places like Japan, or even like Scotland, like you said, you realize that the U.S. in the grand on the world stage is just a adolescent, just a teenager with a very large gun, and just getting to see the history of other places just makes you go like, holy shit, like that's like you said, well, like that's history. Like I know that I can go see monuments of wars here, but that's history. And that is tied with walking along Normandy Beach. That's a soldier thing.
I
Okay.
Wow.
have a long list of places that people have that other submariners told me they've been, and things
Mhm.
that they've done. That one day, when when the pandemic's over and money's in my pocket, you bet, seeing the world. If you don't do it at least once, just get out of the U.S. and
Yeah.
go see somewhere. It
Yeah.
will change your life. I
And
want
not
so
Canada. Like I
desperately.
love Canada, but not Canada. Like you got to
No, it's
leave
got
North
you
America.
gotta cross an ocean
Yeah,
and
leave
go
North
somewhere.
America.
You got.
Like it's like you gotta leave North America. Like I get like
Mm,
Canada's cool, and Mexico. There's some cool stuff in Mexico too. So there's that.
mhm.
But just it's a different world. Okay, last question, and then we're gonna do the wrap and ask people where where they can find you guys and where they can find more information about IV4. But on the subject of that, if you could have IV4 at any location on the planet, regardless of cost, like you fly like all expense paid for hotels, for the staff, for the players, for all of that. If you and like network infrastructure is there for you no matter what. If you could do it anywhere on the planet, where would you put IV4? Regardless of cost and technological limitations.
That's a real good question. I mean, like, I'm not gonna pick a homer pick. I'm like if I'm thinking about like the Staples Center. Like I'm like I went in the United Center. I definitely like that would be like a kind of my first choice. But just like thinking about like weather, location, everything else. Like I don't want to go to
Regardless of
Europe.
weather. Don't worry about
Yeah.
weather either. Just like it will be perfect weather where you go, perfect network.
Well, then I stay. Then I would stay. Then the United Center. Like if I was able to do something and just like this is something that I never thought would ever occur, and it's occurring in my life. It's just like here I'm running an esports event inside of the United Center, and we also have all the production and shit to do, Overwatch there. Pretty
Okay.
much that would be the thing. It's like
All right.
here's the finals. I'm part of it. Here's when that's here.
All right, Jack, what about you?
Um, I forget the name of it in New York City. I got to
Madison
be
Square Garden
outside. Wherever the inaugural
or Barclays
Overwatch
Center.
League, yeah,
Barclays Center.
the
Yeah.
Barclays Center,
Okay.
to be able to like essentially like go back to when I started. Like, I didn't get to actually attend um the Owl Grand Finals, but I had a lot of friends that ended up going that I ended up meeting for the first time in the org that I was working at when that I started as a caster, because I live in Connecticut, so it's just like a quick drive to go see people. But like to be able to kind of like relive that and be like, I was once here, a couple years ago, and then just to be back again, to be like, wow, like I never knew that I would be here again. Like that would, oh, I'd lose my mind, just
Okay.
lose it.
Jack, Will, I find myself often quoting movies.
Mhm.
And so I'm going to quote a movie, and then I'm going to give where I would have IV4 if I were in either of your shoes. If we're talking regardless of cost, perfect weather, perfect network. And I have to say, you mustn't be afraid to dream a little bigger, darling. I would have IV4 in the Roman Colosseum.
Jeez.
Giant screens up, and we're talking irregardless of cost,
Oh.
irregardless of network,
Okay.
perfect weather
Oh
Okay.
my
in the Coliseum,
goodness.
have a bunch of monitors lined around to show the screens, people sitting in
Oh.
the stands screaming, screaming on their modern digital gladiators as they do glorious battle in the
Entertained.
Coliseum.
Oh
Like
my
Are
you
you
god.
not
mustn't,
entertained?
you mustn't be
Oh.
afraid to dream a little bigger, darling. Roman
So
Coliseum.
So I have to tell you, the relationship that Will and I have is Will gets excited about big ideas, and I'm the one
Mhm.
that has to pull him back. Thank you for now giving me something I'm gonna have to pull him back
You are welcome.
because
All
now
right.
he knows where the limit is. He knows where we're going.
So, okay, with that being said, we're gonna wrap it up because we went a little bit over. Will, Jack, tell the people in chat where they can find you guys, where they can find you individually, as well as find more information about IV, about the invitational.
So for myself, it's just Will English. I'm Will English the fourth, so just Will English IV on all socials. We are building our brand socials out. We just didn't do it in time for IV3, but like by the time IV4 and everything comes around, you'll see another set of brand socials. So we have Twitter for the Invitational. We have Twitter for our new organization, EBN Esports, which is going to be our new moniker for 2022. So yeah, but just for now, Will English IV on Twitter, all the socials. I'm a huge brand person, so I try to make sure branding is all tight. So pretty much any social, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, the whole nine yards. Please follow me there, and you'll get more information. We will be, like I said, we've hinted that IV4 will happen in 2022, in January 2022. We're still committed to that. So more information will be coming out with from that soon. And there's some other surprises that we haven't revealed yet, but you talk about locations, like there's something, there might be some that in the works is all I have to say right now.
Okay.
All right, you can find me. Wasn't as easy for me to keep everything the same because Pirates of the Caribbean is a thing. So
Yep.
you can find me on Twitter at CAPT_Jack87, or you can find me on Twitch. I stream whenever I get time to
Absolutely.
at Captjack87. But for the most part, I mean, I'm doing stuff with Will most of the time. We're working on the Toronto event right now. And like Will said, there's so much more in the works, folks. The only hint that I will give is I hope y'all are ready to travel, because we gonna be doing a lot of walking in
Yeah.
2022. A
Yeah.
lot of walking.
Like I really like we're at the point in our lives now where we're in negotiations that we can't reveal anything because of NDAs, and then as soon as it gets released, it's like, all right, guys, we've been working on this for the past like 6 months, and now you get to see it or whatever. So when I don't mean to hedge anything at all, but like when some of this stuff drops, you're gonna see it, and this is like what. I'm like, yeah, and these are dreams, my friends. Like this has been a dream come true. Like this entire year has all been like I'm having a time in my life, and I want to keep going. So, like I said, I'm always grateful to all the support we have, regardless of where we may roam. And so, and we're hoping to continue. So, like I said, we want to be in service to this community, this fledgling esports community, and wherever we go, like we're welcome with open arms. And I can't ask for anything more than that. And this is the part where I get emotional and start crying on stream. So I'm trying not to do that. But that's another thing. But thank you, and thank you, Alchemist. Like I said, this is again part of that journey, part of the journey of like like these are the opportunities we get presented, and it's so amazing for us. And so never imagined I'd be here, but now that I'm here, it's like all right, now I needed to stay here. That's the hard part, right? You can do it once, right? But just getting that first album is your first date, right? But getting that
Right.
second album, right? That's the hard part, right? And so that's what we're doing right now, and grateful to be here, and grateful to everyone that's been a part of this, and everyone else. And also just a quick shout out to Myth, who initially tried to set this up. I know that he had a lot more to say,
Mhm.
but thank you for setting this up with us, and everything else. It's so amazing. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Well, chat, that is going to be our show. You have the lovely links in chat to go and follow Will English and Captain Jack. You need to go and do that. Like as soon as this broadcast is done, I'm expecting to see those things happen because you want to stay tuned on all the cool stuff that's happening. You're going to need to follow
Mhm.
these two gentlemen to do so. I have been your host, Alchemist. You can find me on Twitter at Alchemist Joker. You can also find me on Twitch as Alchemist Joker. You can pretty much find me anywhere as Alchemist Joker because that's just who I am. But until next time, guys, thank you for hanging out. Thank you for being here. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and remember, keep those gloves up, all right? Later.
Thank you.